everybody, I'm Marty Caswell from the Darren Smith Show on Double X 1090 or LMA BC Radio or Mighty1090.com, whatever you want to call it. Anyways, thanks for watching all the videos. Thanks for taking the drum and meet at dealing with the shakiness. It's been a long, crazy Charger season, not the ending any of us were expecting. I caught up with Antonio Gates just a couple days ago to talk about what went wrong for the Chargers, his thoughts on Vincent Jackson, what the guys in the locker room really think of Norv Turner. It's about 20 minutes. Enjoy it. I'm going to go ahead and drink this beer. And we'll talk to you in a few minutes. Antonio, are you surprised the way this season ended, not just for you, but for the San Diego Chargers as well?
Yeah, I am. Just because we have our own expectations of, making the postseason every single year. Our goal is to win the championship, and to fall short of not only our expectations, but just to fall short of giving ourselves a chance in the postseason. It's frustrating, but at the same time, I understand what we were dealing with. We were dealing with a lot of injuries, a lot of guys coming in and out, and we were just trying to overcome so many different things. And digging ourselves and putting ourselves in a situation, starting off 2-5 didn't help. So that sums up our season. Just trying to dig ourselves out of a hole. Every time you look up, it was like a must-win situation, and this league is just too tough.
The last time you guys missed the playoffs was 2005, and the only reason why I bring that up is because that's the season where it started off where you missed that first game against the Cowboys because of the whole roster exemption, your own dispute with the front office. Chargers lose that game 28-24, miss the playoffs by 1 game. When that happened that year, did you ever look back and say, man, if I had been in that game, we'd be in the playoffs? Did you look back at that? Would you guys do that?
Yeah, you look back and you think of the things that you could have somewhat made a difference in. I felt like I can remember that game like it was yesterday. 'Cause, I missed it, and I remember we got in the red zone and we couldn't score. We got down there, and then Drew Brees, I think he tried to hit Justin Peel, and we just couldn't get in. And I felt like I could have made a difference. But once the season got going, it was some games that we still lost that we always playing in. So, unfortunately, you always have an opportunity to still recover from mistakes early in the season. But, like I said, in this league, it's too hard. Like, you think about this season, when we played the Oakland Raiders here, we still was controlling our own destiny at that point. Had we won that game at Oakland, against Oakland here, the transition may have been a little bit different because we would have had another game to spare before we was, basically out of playoff contention. So, we lost some opportunities. All the way up to Cincinnati, we still had a chance.
Right.
Because who was to say Kansas City wins this week? So we still had some things that we can control, and I think that's what you focus on when you move forward, is the things that you can control.
And I bring that up because you know what's going to happen when the Chargers miss the playoffs or something doesn't go right. They're going to say, well, what happened? And so it's going to be, hey, if they had Vincent Jackson, hey, if they had Marcus McNeil, they wouldn't be in that situation. Maybe it wouldn't come down to a special teams miscue. Do the guys in the locker room think that way, or do you guys, or is it no, we're going to go with the guys that we have here, period?
I mean, it's one of those situations with Marcus and Vincent, and you can't control the business side of it. We were going to war with the guys that we had, the core guys that we had, and we didn't know whether or not Marcus was going to return. We didn't know whether or not Vincent was going to return. Are we a better team with Vincent and Marcus? Yeah. You're talking about 2 guys that changes the game at their position, 2 Pro Bowl caliber football players. So of course we're a better team. We're a good team without him. Yeah, we were a good team without him. Dombrowski stepped up and played well, and Legadoo Nate stepped up and played well. So, to say it would have made a difference to have him, yeah, it probably would have made a difference. But those are things, when we went into the season, we were prepared to be without him. So we can't use, we can't sit here and say that's the excuse why we lost those games, because when we prepared for football games, we prepared as if Vincent Jackson and Marcus McNeil didn't exist. And, we felt like we still had a legitimate chance of winning a football game. So the mistakes that we made in the football game, I don't think Vincent Jackson and Marcus McNeil could have overcame them as well if we did have them. I mean, the things that we did, because we got Vincent and Marcus now, and we still made mistakes and we still lost football games.
Right.
So, and granted, we don't have everybody healthy at the same time, but when I think of the games that we did lose, offensively, defensively, we were still number one in categories. So what we learned from that is that when you make these mistakes and when you turn the ball over, you can have an all-star team and you still probably won't win a football game because it's a team. It's a team effort.
Did not having them here create any type of distraction in that locker room, or did guys really did they really move on like they said they did? Because guys, guys talk.
You got core guys like Marcus and Vincent. You want to see them here. So as a guy that's been around, I understand that that's something, like I said, you just can't control. My job is to go out and play as well as I can play. The coach's job is to get the guys that's backing Vincent up and backing Marcus McNeil ready to play, because that's the reason why you're on this team. Because we figure you can bring something to the table at one point. Whether or not we count on you to start or not, you're here and you make this team because you have a gift that God gave you to go out and play football. So we never for once, blink. Would I want Vincent here? Would I want Marcus here? Of course. Do they make a difference in the game? Of course. Would they made it a difference in the season? Of course. But beginning of the season, what we had is what we had, and I prepared as if this is what I'm going to go to war with, and this is what I can do, this is what I can't do, this is how it's kind of adapting on the run, and I think that's what makes up a good team, is a team that's able to adapt when the circumstances don't present itself the way they had visioned it. We didn't vision Marcus and Vincent not being here this year, but they wasn't here, so we somehow put the pieces to the puzzle, and then we eventually got Marcus back, and then we didn't get Vincent back until later in the season. But we tried to make it work with the guys that we had, and it goes back to the mistakes that we were making. I don't know Vincent and Marcus could have still overcame those mistakes, because when you think of those games, that span of being 2-5, we had a lot of those games won, but we turned the ball over. Special teams, we got punt blocks and scored touchdowns and points given up. So that's something that I don't think no single player can overcome.
Now, you just mentioned that you would love to have Vincent Jackson, Mark. Of course, he makes you guys better. He's an impact player. You've really become one of the leaders on this team. You're one of the captains on offense. And guys handle things differently, but would you ever be that guy that would say, AJ, Norv, we need Vincent Jackson. We need this guy. He makes us better. Let's go get it. Let's go win with these guys. Is that something you feel comfortable doing, or is that not really, do you think, is your role to do that?
One thing I've learned about being here is that you never really know why a player's not signed. From our perspective, all we know is that Marcus is a good left tackle. All we know is that Vincent is a good receiver. We don't know why they're not getting their contract done. We have no clue. So it would be the best interest of the team to just stay focused on your work and not focus on what somebody else is doing. Because once you start focusing on him and somebody else, then somehow you lose focus on what you need to do to go out and help this team. And I think that's the big picture for me, for any player that comes into this league, is that I want to go out and be the best tight end I can be. Whether or not I played without Vincent, I played without Marcus before. I was here before both of them. So I didn't never have a true focus on them, because that wasn't my place to go and say, Vincent, you need to be here, come in here early, and don't worry about the contracts, or go say, no, if you know what, you better get Vincent signed, because that's something that I can't control.
Right.
But I can call Vincent and I can call Marcus and say, man, I sure miss y'all. I miss y'all being here. I miss playing with y'all, and I hope everything work out for the better of this team. And that's all I was able to do. I didn't take sides. They would call and I would speak to them and I would just make my suggestions. I held out. So
and then, you're right. You're gonna be a long time charger now.
So I know how you feel at times when you somehow you feel the loyalty is not there, in a sense, and it's not always the case. Sometimes it's numbers. Sometimes it's situations that present itself, and where you're not able to sign certain people at the time that they want to get signed. And it's always easier to talk about it when it's not you as well. it's so easy for me to go tell Marcus, and it's so easy for me to go tell Vincent, because I did get signed. So you know, and that's something that most players will say to you. It's easy for you to say, you know, Phillip Rivers, they signed your contract, they did your deal, and I was a guy that was in that position when I didn't have my deal done, and I was a guy that got my deal done. And from both sides of the, you know, from looking at it from both sides, I felt like it was just, it's best to stay out of it.
But when that, I'm curious, when that happened to you, and you have a unique perspective, and you had the battle of words with your previous agent and with the Chargers front office, did you ever think, you know, man, it's bad blood, and you know what, I'm going to play this year out, and that's it? Did you envision that it turned out into where you are right now with a long-term contract and pretty much going to be a Charger for life?
Yeah, you know, I think as a player, from a player's perspective, you know, you go out and you lay everything on the line every single week. And for me personally, I try not to make it personal. I try to have this business aspect about it. But, you know, when you care about something and you care about someone in particular, like your teammates, somehow it becomes personal to you, even if you don't want it to be. And I think that was my perspective. You know, I felt like the things that I've done in the past and what I played with or tried to play with, it was all personal. It had nothing to do with business. So when it's time for my contract to come up, you know, you can talk business with me, but you know, a little bit of my heart is left in this locker room. You know, and I think sometimes guys say it's all business, and coaches say it's all business, and you know, obviously the guys who do the contract say it's all business. But sometimes it gets personal because, you know, when you lay your body on the line at a certain extent, sometimes you feel it's a slap in the face as a player. You know, now, you know, if I'm a coach and I'm a coach and I have a coach's perspective and I'm trying to win, I'm doing the best thing for the team. And I think as a player, you gotta understand they are going to do the best thing for the team. There's no single person that you can single out and say, we got to do him or we got to get this done, because if he doesn't fit the criteria of making us better as a team, then it's going to be it's a difficult task to get him